Hey everybody, Fantasy Philosophers back for another episode of our Breakout candidates. We are now transitioning to the NFC West. Again, shout out to everyone who's viewed, liked, commented, subscribed. We appreciate all the support. Keep it coming. We would really like your input on what you would like to see from us on upcoming episodes. So please, we're here for you. Let us know what you want to see and we'll get to work. But, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just dive right in. NFC West breakout candidates. And we're going to start with San Francisco 49ers. My breakout candidate, Raheem Mostert. At the time that I pulled the data, he's going mid to late sixth round. Something that's interesting about Mostert, I know some people are aware of this, but just to make sure everyone is aware, Raheem Mostert, he's a champion sprinter for not only high school, but as well as college. So the guy has speed. He definitely has speed. With the departure of Matt Breida, that's going to open up more carries for Mostert, I would imagine. My personal take on Tevin Coleman, who does remain in the 49ers backfield, it just appears that he's more fit as a change of pace back. Now, whether the coaching staff sees that, I don't know, to be determined. That's just a personal opinion, more or less. But not to mention just how run heavy San Francisco's offense is, along with the production that Mostert was able to achieve when given opportunity last season. Just taking a look at some stats, we have true yards per carry, which it does discount all runs greater than 10 yards, which puts a premium on consistency and factors out the disproportionate impact of long runs. Actual yards per carry is displayed in parentheses. So actual yards per carry, 5.6 yards per carry, true yards per carry, 5.3. Either way you slice it, Mostert ranked number 1. Moving along, yards per touch, 6.3 yards, ranked number 4. Breakaway runs, total carries of 15 or more yards. He had 12, which ranked number 6. Total carries, moving on to breakaway run rates, percentage of carries of 15 or more yards, 8.8%, ranked number 1 again.
Dang.
So all of those metrics, along with the fact that as a team, they ran just over 31 run plays per game, which ranked number 2 in the NFL. If he's given opportunity in the run game, everything is set up for him to succeed. They still have Jerick McKinnon. Talented guy. Will he ever come back from those injuries? He could. I just have a hard time believing it. But I think Raheem Mostert really proved to not only us fantasy players, but to his own coaching staff that he needs to be involved much more than he was throughout the 2019 season. And when you're getting a guy in the mid to late 6th round with that type of upside, it's really hard to pass. It just really is. You heard the metrics and where he ranked and some of those, rushing statistics. He had a couple where he was number 1. when I look at that backfield, I see him as the lead back with Tevin Coleman kind of going back to somewhat of a similar role back when he was in Atlanta. He will be involved. I don't see Tevin Coleman as a workhorse per se. He definitely gets it done, as a change of pace back. But I'm thinking that San Fran is going to lean much more so on Raheem Mostert come this season. And I was a little surprised to see him in the six, especially with how he finished the year. So will that ADP come up? It very well could. But with just such a run heavy offense and the production that we saw from him last season when he was given the opportunity, for me, I feel that if he gets 15 touches a game, he will very likely exceed that 6th-round value of where he's being taken currently, ADP wise. So Raheem Mostert, go get him. Breakout, it's coming.
Yeah, man. I kind of tend to agree with you a little bit. I definitely like Raheem Mostert. I remember 2 years ago when San Francisco couldn't keep a healthy quarterback, couldn't keep a healthy running back, and he got his number called. And for like a game or two, he was really showing us what he's shown us now. And then he had that nasty forearm break and got sidelined with that. So that was upsetting. I'm glad to see him, making a comeback. He definitely finished the year with some strong games last year. So that's definitely going in his favor. So I tend to agree with that part of the take for sure. Breida being gone, definitely a plus. And yeah, man, he's tied to Shanahan, who's going to run the ball and who's going to scheme a way to have an advantage. So you're getting a plus advantage on whatever route you're running, on whatever formation you're in, whatever play call there is. So he's going to have like above average opportunity to do things like have a 15-yard breakaway. So I like it. For what it's worth, in the mock drafts I've done in the last week or so, I routinely see him go in like the mid-5th.
Yeah, I could see that. Like I said, I was very surprised when I saw 6th round. Just
Mm-hmm.
again, it's very common for people, especially fantasy players specifically, to have somewhat of a recency bias and just seeing how he was producing there towards the end of the season. I was expecting it to be higher, so it sounds like it may have already started to creep up.
Yeah.
But either way, when you're running the ball that many times a game, and personally, I feel that he just flat out outplayed Tevin Coleman. I know they had those games where, for whatever reason, they decided to try to go back to Tevin Coleman, but I just didn't see anything close from Coleman to what Mostert was able to do when on the field and given opportunities to produce.
Yeah. And I said it on the last episode. When you're talking about fantasy running backs production, the golden ticket is always opportunity. And he's going to get plenty of that. So,
oh, yeah.
Good points. Good pick on a breakout candidate. I'm going to go ahead and, unless you have anything else, I'm going to go ahead and transition over to my guy. Perfect. So my guy actually isn't going drafted right now. So this might be considered more of a sleeper pick. But my guy's Trent Taylor, wide receiver for the Niners. And he's basically being overlooked right now because he missed all of last year with a foot injury. That foot injury did require 5 surgeries. Definitely a concern, not going to lie. But before that happened to him last year, he was the wide receiver that got any talk out of camp. They weren't talking about Pettis. They weren't talking about Hurd. They weren't talking about Debo. It was Trent Taylor, Trent Taylor, Trent Taylor.
Yep, I
And
remember
if you're
that.
unfamiliar, yeah, if you're unfamiliar with who Trent Taylor is, and if you are, I don't blame you. He hasn't exactly had a stellar career to this point, which is kind of why he's on this list. Um, he's more of a slot receiver type, a water bug type of guy. I think he's only like 5'9". So we're talking short area quickness, quick, precise routes. Doesn't need to be schemed open because he can create separation with his route running and his short area quickness. I think he comes if as long as he is fully recovered from his foot injury, I think he comes back and takes up right where he left off. So I'm looking at him potentially being the 1A, 1B type of receiver with Debo Samuel. Let's not lie to ourselves. Kittle is king in this passing offense. He will be the leading receiver. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I think Trent Taylor coming back from injury, he can rekindle the relationship that he had with Jimmy Garoppolo. They had some pretty good rapport. At the end of 2 years ago, Jimmy, rattled off some wins after the trade, and he finally got to start. He was connected quite a bit during that time, which is sounds like it translated into camp moving forward this prior year. Unfortunately, uh, foot injuries really sidelined his year last year, so we never got to see what it could be. For his cost, he's basically free. Um, you know, take a take your last pick and spend it on Trent Taylor. He could be a wide receiver 2 for you that you got for basically nothing. A lot of people don't think that those last pick those last picks matter. Got a little tongue tied there. A lot of people don't think that they matter, but you can get some league winners even with those last picks, man. 2 years ago, Philip Lindsay was that guy. Take him at the end of your draft, and people are like, "Who the heck is Philip Lindsay?" And then by the end of the year, they're like, "How did you know about Philip Lindsay?" Well, hopefully it's because you listened to us and heard me talk about Trent Taylor and decided why not.
Yeah, good points. And I definitely remember last offseason, there was a lot of hype going on around Trent Taylor. So it was real unfortunate that he suffered those injuries. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping that he's fully recovered and back to being 100% healthy. And post hype,
Yeah,
maybe
he's
the
free.
year, maybe that year. So well said, well said. I like
Yeah,
it.
right on. Well, let's see. I think next up we want to talk about Arizona. That sound good? Yeah, let's go to Arizona. So I'll get us kicked off here. Arizona, my breakout candidate is another wide receiver, looking at Christian Kirk. Overall, going as the 103rd player, about wide receiver 40 off the board. Um, and I love that value for this guy. So last year, he had 12 red zone targets and 11 catches. That made him ninth in red zone receptions on the year. Pretty good. Top 10 in red zone receptions, I'll take that. Now, consider this with those red zone receptions, he was tackled on the 1 yard line twice last year. 2 separate times he got stopped a yard short. So you got to think that most times that's probably a touchdown. Just didn't quite break his way last year. So that being said, positive touchdown regression. I think that's coming. I think he's going to score a few more this year. So that's just talking about red zone targets and touchdowns, though. I was also really encouraged when I started looking at target share in that offense and found out that Christian Kirk accounted for 25% of it. That was with, Larry Legend, which love the guy. I wish he had got a Super Bowl. Doesn't look like he's going to get one before he retires, but, Father Time is going to catch up with him. He'll be 36 this year. I thought AP was old. Um, Larry Fitzgerald's going to be 36 this year, and I expect him to take an even further step back as far as producing in the offense. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins showed up. But for me, that just means that now you have to double DeAndre basically, and Christian Kirk is going to see easier coverage than he saw this year. Because honestly, let's not kid ourselves. While Larry's great, was he drawing double coverage this past year? I didn't watch any film to confirm this, but I'm gonna say no. Um, you know, he's a great player, had a great career, but athletically, I don't think he demands the double team anymore. So easier coverage for Christian Kirk now that DeAndre Hopkins is there. And then the last thing I've got here is he saw 8 or more targets a game last year, which is a good kind of benchmark. And 63% of wide receivers who played at least 6 games and met that mark met it again the following year. So based on that metric, there's a high chance that we're going to see him get a minimum of 8 targets a game next year. And with easier coverage, presumably, than he saw this year, I like what that looks like, especially if we think that touchdown regression's coming, which I don't think it's going to be anything major, but I definitely expect him to have a couple more touchdowns based on his red zone usage and, getting stopped at the 1-2 times. So Christian Kirk for me is the Arizona breakout candidate. How about you, Patrick? Agree, disagree? Got a different player?
I agree 100%. Christian Kirk is also my breakout candidate. And you hit on a lot of my talking points. So I'll keep mine fairly short and sweet for everyone. So when I pulled the data, Kirk was going late ninth, creeping into the 10th round, and just thinking about the offensive system that he plays in and the pace that they're running plays at, I mean, that's just opportunity, period.
Good point.
So that's going in his favor. He's only 23 years old. He turns 24 in mid-November. So still very, very young. He does have 2 years experience playing professionally. And probably to his benefit, even though Fitz unfortunately is beyond his prime at this point, anytime that you have 2 years of working directly with someone such as Larry Fitzgerald, I've got to believe that that's helped Christian Kirk's game, just overall.
Now he's going to get DeAndre. Now he's going to get to pick DeAndre Hopkins' brain. Like,
And
incredibly lucky for Christian Kirk.
Yeah, and that's where I was moving to next, because I've never thought of Christian Kirk as a wide receiver one, that alpha. I do think he is a very good wide receiver two for a
I agree with
professional
that.
team.
Wholeheartedly agree with that.
And as Larry Fitz is, he'll be on the field. They may try to pad his stats a bit. It wouldn't surprise me if this is likely his last season. But for me, I look at it as DeAndre Hopkins, the alpha one, and at this point in time, I think Christian Kirk will be second in that pecking order above Fitzgerald. I
Agreed.
really do. I really do. He does have 1 year experience playing with Kyler Murray and that air raid system. And, just the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, that's going to be the primary focus for every opposing defense, which just sets Christian Kirk up for even more success. Again, you hit on a lot of the other talking points I had, so I'll just end it there. When you can get a guy in the late ninth, sometimes creeping into the 10th round, who's going to be the wide receiver two in an offense that's, known for the air raid. Kyler Murray had a great rookie season. I expect him to take a step forward. The addition of D-Hop. Things are setting up quite nicely for Christian Kirk moving into this season. Christian Kirk, breakout. It's coming. Go get him.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add real quick was just that I agree with you that as far as pecking order in that offense, Vision, Larry Fitzgerald. I expect Larry Fitzgerald to play more of like a big slot type of role.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where he's certainly best suited, you know. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure Fitz will be capable of still producing, you know, noteworthy stats come end of season. He will certainly contribute. I'm just really anticipating this being that year where he realizes he's essentially passing that torch to DeAndre Hopkins and just really taking this year as, you know, an opportunity to mentor not only Christian Kirk but even DeAndre Hopkins. You know, as good as he is, I'm sure Larry Fitzgerald could even help him improve to some extent.
Yeah, and I mean they have a really young receiving core all around. Andy Isabella, Hakeem Butler,
Yeah,
Keyshawn Johnson. I mean they just got youth all over. So having them back, whether he plays a snap or not, was probably really smart on their part.
agreed, agreed. But yeah, Christian Kirk breakout, it's coming. Make sure y'all go get him.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and shift to Los Angeles Rams. I'm glad I remembered that. Los
I still say San
Angeles.
Diego all the time, dude. It's gonna take forever.
Yeah. San Diego, St. Louis. Where
Yeah,
else have the
St. Louis.
Rams
I said
been?
San Diego. I
Yeah,
don't. I'm all tongue tied today, man.
I can't keep up. But anyway, the LA Rams. So my breakout candidate, Robert Woods.
Bobby Trees.
Probably not who you were expecting to hear as a breakout candidate, but let's look a little closer. So Robert Woods, he's going in the mid sixth round. And let's start by going back to his production in the 2018 season. 130 targets, 86 receptions, 1,219 yards. That averaged 14.2 yards per catch and 6 touchdowns. In addition, this is where it gets real interesting. Back in 2018, he also had 19 rushes for 157 rush yards and 1 rushing touchdown.
Okay.
Okay, now let's look at 2019. 139 targets, 90 receptions, 1,134 receiving yards, 12.6 yards per catch, only 2 receiving touchdowns. But again, 17 rushing attempts, 115 rush yards, 1 rushing touchdown. So the opportunity provided to him in both the pass as well as the run game over these previous 2 seasons, easy wide receiver 1 upside. If the man can find the end zone, or even if he, you know, let's say he just matches 6 touchdowns, which is what he put up back in 2018. You know, when you're looking at the volume, the yards, the receptions, you know, even sprinkling in those rushing opportunities, and then the fact that when they went to the 2 tight end formation, he was the receiver that remained on the field. So his snap share is essentially locked in. He's not coming off the field. He's getting 130 plus targets over the past 2 seasons. Exceeded 1,100 yards in each of those seasons. Added on over 100 rush yards in each of those seasons. I mean, tons of upside, but a very, very solid floor. Very solid.
For sure.
And it seems like a lot of people just have this perception of Robert Woods being just an old man. He's 28. He's 28, so still in
Still
his
in his prime.
prime. Still in his prime, yeah. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. I don't know what Sean McVay has in store, as far as play calling, formations, etc. come this season. But if in fact they do decide to continue using those two tight end formations, well, guess which wide receiver is still on the field with that? It's Robert Woods. So when you're getting a guy that has opportunity, he's not coming off the field, he's productive in not only the pass game, but he's shown that he can be productive in the rush game as well. Breakout. I mean, I would be shocked if he does not well exceed that 6th round ADP that he's currently going at. I mean, that's a steal. Personally, I would almost feel surprised if he was still there in the 5th, but that's just me knowing the people that I commonly play with, of course.
Some
But
sharks.
yeah, I mean, don't think that you've got to wait till the 6th. If you get him in the 5th, you're going to be
You can
perfectly
still get a
fine.
value for sure.
Perfectly fine. So, Robert Woods, breakout's coming. Whether you wait till the 6th and get lucky and he's still there, you go ahead and grab him in the 5th. Either way, you're going to be looking nice. You're going to have a guy with as solid of a floor as you're going to find when it comes to the wide receiver position. And if we see some positive regression, especially in that receiving touchdown area, I mean, easy wide receiver 1 upside for sure. Robert
Yeah.
Woods, go get him.
Yeah, I like the points you brought up there. Some good stats. I like Bobby Trees, and I'll be honest, the rushing stats really surprised me. Um, I knew he was used sometimes on like end arounds, jet sweeps, that type of stuff, but I was unaware of the amount of yardage he racked up on it. So that was cool. That's a cool stat.
Yeah, and just some more insight for our viewers. So, as I've heard in previous episodes, Dustin and I, we are a part of the Dynasty League. And I hate to admit this, I had Robert Woods. He got off to somewhat of a slow or maybe inconsistent start, whichever term you want to go with. Either way, there was that game where he had something personal and he missed a game and he came back and just had a blow up game, stat wise. Well, for whatever reason, I thought I was selling high on him and I traded him away. And he never stopped. That blow up game, it just got replicated game after game after game. And then what do you know? Round 1 of the playoffs, I match up against the team that I traded him to, and lost by, I believe, 2 points.
Brutal.
That team did go on and win the championship. So Kurt, shout out. Enjoy that championship belt. We'll be coming after you this season. But yeah, looking back, major mistake on my part. Should have been more patient. I'm probably cursed at this point when it comes to Robert Woods, because that
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have a player that we've done that with. It's Derrick Henry for me. So it happens. Sometimes we're too patient and we wait too long, and they never do anything. And then sometimes we get out too early. It's just impossible to win them all. So that's why we engage in these types of discussions, though, so that we can see different points of
exactly.
view and maybe hold on when we would have otherwise let go. But yeah, I like Bobby Trees. That's not who I chose for LA, the Rams. I'm a tight end guy. I got to stay on brand. So I chose Gerald Everett. That's right,
Ooh,
Gerald Everett,
okay.
not Tyler Higbee.
Let's hear
I
it.
do think Higbee will be fantasy relevant as well as Everett. I think they're both going to have a role here. And let's talk about why. So first of all, Gerald Everett is going at the very end of a lot of drafts. 181 overall, 33rd tight end off the board. And if you think about this time last year, the Rams were known as a team that heavily used 11 personnel. If you don't know what 11 personnel is, it's one running back, one tight end, three receivers, 11 personnel. They were known for using it almost exclusively and running. Their whole thing was they would run different plays that always looked the same at first, which is how they were able to fool defenses so badly. Defenses kind of caught on. And the second half of last year, they actually switched to more 12 personnel. So they had a lot of sets with one running back and two tight ends. For instance, in week 1 through 9, they used two tight ends on 11% of plays. But weeks 10 and after, they used two tight ends on 30% of plays. So a huge jump. And from weeks 10 and on, they had the fifth highest usage rate for two tight end sets. I think they continue this trend with the departure of Cooks. They haven't shown a ton of faith in their ancillary receiving pieces like Josh Reynolds. He looks really talented. He's flashed some, but they haven't. The organization hasn't shown that they really feel super comfortable with him out there all the time moving forward. So I think because of that, we see two tight ends more moving forward, and that means that both Everett and Higbee are going to be on the field more. Now, before he was hurt last year, Everett saw 12% of the target share in general, just everywhere on the field. Now, inside the red zone, he saw 18% of the targets. So before he was hurt, he was a common target for Goff. And then when they got into that red zone, those close confined quarters, that big body athletic tight end became more of a target for Goff. I don't see any reason why that'll change, especially if both he and Higbee are on the field. So right now the hype is all about Higbee, and he's being drafted way, way ahead of Everett. But it's like a really tiny sample size that people are hanging their hat on. For like 56 out of his first 58 games, I think it was, Higbee didn't have more than 40 yards in a game. And then all of a sudden he kind of blew up at the end. Obviously, I've said it before, opportunity is, kind of your golden ticket in fantasy football, but I'm not sure that he sees the same opportunity, Higbee. I'm not sure he sees the same opportunity next year when Everett comes back. Again, I think they're both fantasy relevant, and I think they're both going to finish closer to like a tight end 15 finish, because I think they're going to kind of hoover away each other's targets. But tight end 15, that's not season changing or anything like that. But I've talked several times over the course of this series about a draft strategy kind of that involves waiting on tight ends a little bit. Gerald Everett's basically free, the 33rd tight end off the board. I think he finishes closer to tight end 15. If Higbee misses any time whatsoever, I think we see a lot higher probability of like a tight end 12 finish or something like that. So not the sexiest pick here, but I definitely see plenty of ways that Everett outperforms the current ADP that he's going at.
Yeah, well said. And certainly Tyler Higbee, he did put in work,
I
there
mean,
over
those games were
that final
impressive.
stretch, but you know, for such a limited sample size, and granted, they did pay the guy. He does have that in his favor, but just seeing all the hype around Tyler Higbee and how he just got propelled up, not only redraft, but even dynasty league rankings over that small sample size.
I mean, everyone has him in the top 10 tight ends, basically.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not ready to do that yet.
could he do it? Yeah, he could. I just would not want to invest in someone with such a limited track record of production for as high as he's going. And just to touch on what Dustin mentioned, when you can get someone such as Gerald Everett practically free, I mean, why not? Why not? The
My my
guy, go
my
ahead.
my favorite thing about like taking Gerald Everett so late, right, is the fact that like especially if it's redraft, right, which is what we kind of focus this on. If you take Gerald Everett late, you hold him for 2 or 3 weeks, and if he's not being used at all, and I was completely wrong, drop him, and it costs you
Exactly.
absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But if
See,
you're right, you potentially now have a starting tight end or someone you can at least plug in on bye weeks or emergency injuries, things like that at the very least. So it's high reward and almost no risk in my opinion.
yeah, I'm certainly with that. And I'm actually interested to see where we're at within Gerald Everett's contracts. I'm going to pull that up real quick.
I believe he's a free agent next year, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct. He is going, 2020 will be the final year of his rookie contract.
And
He
how old is he?
does.
Does it say?
25, looks like he's approaching 26 later this month.
It's still pretty young for a tight end. So like even in Dynasty, if you can get him super cheap, there's I'm talking like a late third, a fourth round pick maybe. There's a chance he goes somewhere next year and becomes the tight end number one, just like Hayden Hurst just did.
Exactly, because I mean
So
he does have round two draft capital, and anytime it's the final year of a rookie season for any player, I mean you would expect them to be very motivated to do any and everything that they can to get that big extension, whether it be with their current team or another team. So I'm sure the motivation's there. But yeah, when you can grab a guy at the end of the draft, see how things shake out over the first few weeks, and worst case scenario, drop them and move on. But the upside's there. I mean, there's no reason not to. There just isn't.
absolutely. All right. Well, I think that is probably all we can say about those two guys for the Rams. Last but not least in the NFC West here, and actually to wrap up the entire NFC, or NFC West, I'm sorry, we've got Seattle Seahawks. So I can kick us off there. Um, this one, this one was actually pretty easy for me. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, those guys are going pretty early. So they were kind of ruled out based on their ADP. But then I started looking at some of the other pieces like Mr. Chris Carson, and I was shocked at how late he was going. I know there's kind of this consensus out there that, um, you know, he's not that valuable as a fantasy asset. And honestly, like looking at his finishes and what he does when he's on the field, I just can't agree with that. So right now he's going about 62 overall, or at least when I pulled the data, about 62 overall, RB24. So he's going as a very tail end RB2. But he finished the last two seasons as RB12 and RB15. Um, and the last two seasons also played 15 and 14 games respectively. So he also kind of has like this injury prone tag, right? But over the last two seasons, he's only missed 3 games. Um, for a running back that sees as much volume as he does in Seattle, I think that's pretty good. I'd be willing to spend a little bit more than the 24th running back pick on him for sure, especially when you consider that Rashad Penny had a nasty injury at the end of last year, and he's not going to be ready until at least midway through the season. So I can already hear it out there. Yeah, but they signed Carlos Hyde. Who cares? Carlos Hyde is not impressive. Um, if you're looking at box scores from last year, you're probably like, well, he did some work. He had a ton of volume. and he was super inefficient with it. So I'm not scared of Hyde. And in fact, there was an interview that he did just a few days ago where he himself told the interviewer, like, hey man, I'm just here to, do what's needed. I know, it's pretty obvious that Carson is, the starting guy. I'm not going to just give up, but the job looks to be his. So he's already kind of like resigned to not being the man in the backfield. And really, they just needed depth, which is why Hyde is there, because Penny's not going to be there. They needed depth because behind them, they have DJ Dallas, who I actually really like more for next year than this year, in my opinion. But um, they just needed depth, is what it comes down to. Seattle loves to run the ball. They have Mr. Danger, Russ Wilson. So you can't stack the box because Russ will defeat you easily. That guy is one of the funnest quarterbacks to watch. But I find it really easy for Carson to finish as a RB1 again, especially with it being a contract year. Patrick just talked about how players, they know it's a contract year. They want to show out. They want to get a big next contract. With the volume, the lack of really impressive veteran talent behind him, Seattle, they just love to run the ball. And he's not as injury prone as everyone thinks. I think he's got a clear-cut path to finishing as a back-end RB1 again. The only thing that concerns me is the fumbles. He has had some fumble issues in his career, and he's been benched a couple times for it. So that is my one red flag. But at an RB24 price, I will happily take a guy that has proven over the last 2 years that he will finish basically as a guaranteed back-end RB1. I'll take it every time because those guys are hard to find that deep in the draft.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And you just briefly touched on my breakout candidate for Seattle, DJ Dallas. So what really put me on DJ Dallas, and shout out to Dynasty Nerds, they did a film breakdown of DJ Dallas's play in college. And what was interesting is they brought DJ Dallas in as a co-host and had him personally break down his own play. I'm not going to get too far into that, but I recommend go check it out. You'll be very impressed with DJ Dallas and how he owns up immediately to anytime he made a mistake and just his thought process, play to play. He's going to be someone to keep an eye on. At the time that I pulled the ADP for him, late 21st. So, unless you're just in like a 16 or more team league or just have really deep benches, virtually undrafted. And I love Chris Carson. I love his running style. Unfortunately, it just doesn't seem that his body can hold up to that type of running style. Let's not forget, Chris Carson was a 6th-round pick. And we see Pete Carroll, had no hesitation in using him, and look what he's gotten out of him.
Yeah,
pretty amazing. DJ Dallas was taken in the 4th round. I know you touched on Penny. He had the ACL tear. I've seen reports stating that it wasn't, the common ACL tear. It sounded like there was some additional structural damage, which is always even more concerning than just the ACL as it is. And then considering when that ACL tear happened in the season, I'm hearing comments that yes, they do plan on putting him on the PUP, physically unable to play list to begin the season. My personal opinion, I don't see any reason for Rashad Penny to play this year. I really don't. When you take a guy in the 1st round, he suffers that type of injury, there's no reason to rush him back. Yes, Seattle did sign Carlos Hyde, and I'm not, excited about Carlos Hyde. I mean, it's a good veteran running back as far as adding depth to the position is concerned. But, you know, if anything happens to Chris Carson, I don't think it's going to be just, Carlos Hyde taking over that Chris Carson role. I don't. I think it'll likely be a combination of Carlos Hyde along with DJ Dallas. And my personal opinion, I expect DJ Dallas to flat out outplay Carlos Hyde,
He might.
period. And again, will Rashad Penny return this season? It sounds like he might. I just don't see why you would want to rush a guy back, with that type of injury that late in the season. Just thinking from an organizational standpoint, I would feel it would be in everyone's best interest to just hold him out this year, make sure he's fresh going into the following season. But we'll see how that works out. But more or less, it's just about the offense and how run heavy it is. If DJ Dallas gets some opportunity, I see him outplaying Carlos Hyde. I could even see him, not outplaying Chris Carson, assuming he's healthy, but you know, taking some of the workload off of Chris Carson. Because I mean, the guy is great, but unfortunately, it seems like each and every season he suffers an injury of some sort, and those injuries are really starting to stack up. I know this is the last year of Chris Carson's rookie contract, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So
Yep.
Seattle is going to have a big decision to make. Do they want to extend a guy who, yes, is a beast when he's on the field, but constantly dealing with injuries? Or do they want to take an approach of let's hold out Rashad Penny this season, make sure he's ready to go the following season, and then potentially have a really good 1-2 punch of Rashad Penny and DJ Dallas? That's kind of where my mind's at. Again, you know, DJ Dallas, this is probably more of a 14 team breakout. I wouldn't blame anyone in smaller size leagues for making him the last pick of the draft. But should he get ample opportunity, I expect him to produce. And again, Chris Carson being drafted in the 6th, he came in, he produced. Pete Carroll rolled with him. If DJ Dallas does the same, I completely expect Pete Carroll to do the same thing, continue to roll with them. So when you're getting a guy that late in such a run heavy offense with the only guys ahead of him and aging Carlos Hyde, who's never really lived up to expectations, Chris Carson, who's great, but does get hurt practically every season. I can't think of a season off top that he hasn't. But yeah, DJ Dallas. And I do want to recommend for those of you who are interested in learning more about DJ Dallas, pull up that film, Dynasty Nerds, when they break down DJ Dallas's play and they have him as a co-host. I think hearing him break down his own play will really impress you. But anyway, that sums it up. DJ Dallas, last pick of the draft. The upside is there. If you get in a tough spot, you can always drop him, but he it's not a bad idea to hold on to a guy like that in such a run heavy offense where if anything happens to Chris Carson, the only person I see preventing him from just completely taking over the workhorse role is Carlos Hyde, and I'm just, Carlos Hyde, he's okay. He's okay.
Yeah.
But he's not someone that I think will prevent DJ Dallas from potentially just taking over that role. So DJ Dallas, that's my breakout. Go get him.
And I like DJ Dallas a lot, as I kind of alluded to. If I'm not mistaken, he's a pretty good pass catching back as well.
He's
Um,
really good at pass protection.
okay,
And
so which
that's,
is invaluable.
that's something that scouts have raved about him. And that's something that if you pull up Dynasty Nerds Film Breakdown where he's a co-host, they bring it up several times. I mean, this guy, he's getting it done in pass protection. I believe at some point they even asked him, as far as like the combine and meeting with teams, was pass protection something that they brought up to him or discussed with him. And it was interesting. He said, no, actually, not a single team brought that up. And what that tells me is that they don't even need to talk about it. They've seen it.
Interesting.
They've seen it. And so for a rookie coming into the league that impressed scouts in college as a pass protector, and obviously he produced in the run game as well, that definitely gives him a leg up, in my opinion, over an aging Carlos Hyde. Lord willing, I hope Chris Carson stays healthy because I love watching him play. That guy is just a warrior. Will his body hold up though? That's really the question. So, again, this is a deeper bench, or at least 16 teams probably, but that running offense, man, if you take him as the last pick and Chris Carson goes down, sky's
Yeah.
the limit. The sky's the limit. So DJ
Even if
Dallas, definitely consider him.
even
Consider
if
him.
Carlos Hyde gets hurt and he takes on, the secondary back role that, I have projected for Hyde to step in what Penny did last year, that's basically what I have as far as like what I'm projecting. Carson's the main guy. Carlos Hyde is going to take over the same role that Penny had, which is, mostly a spell type of back. Um, even if he gets those touches, all it takes is opportunity in the NFL. And
Exactly.
I've heard enough good things about him that he's definitely someone who's on my radar for like Dynasty Empire. Definitely going to be expecting him to make some noise in redraft next year. Because I fully expect the Seahawks to let Carson test the market. They'll
That's
have
what I'm
Penny
expecting as
and
well.
DJ Dallas under contract, so I don't see them paying Carson. But we'll find out at the end of next year, I guess.
We
Uh, any
shall.
anything else you got for these NFC West guys or the NFC in general? This wraps up our series on the NFC.
No, I think we hit on everything that we intended to. Again, this concludes our breakout candidates for the NFC. We'll be pivoting over to the AFC, so keep a lookout. Those episodes will be coming very, very soon. So definitely stay tuned. Again, thank you so much to everyone who's given us support of any type. Much appreciated. We're excited to continue creating content, continuing to not only share, but learn from others. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. Leave us some comments, let us know what content you're looking for. We would love that. We really, really would. We're just kind of, going through things that we feel are relevant and that people would like to hear about. But if people want to reach out and let us know exactly what you want us to touch on, or create an entire episode on, we'd be more than happy and excited as well to do that for you.
100%.
So anything at all, drop a comment, let us know, and we'll get to work. But again, thanks for the love, everyone. We appreciate y'all. Until next time, I'll let Dustin close us out.
Yeah. Until next time, guys, stay cool and stay tuned. We'll be back with some more hot takes, some breakout candidates, and some bold predictions coming at you soon. Later, guys.
Later, y'all.